Hi and welcome to the second challenge of this series. In this one, the task is to reverse a string. So hit that subscribe button and let's get started. Very quickly before the start of the video, if you want to stay updated with the modern web development courses and content releases, please subscribe to my newsletter. The link is in the video description. Happy coding and learning. The task is simple. We are given a string, fast, and we need to reverse it, meaning the first character is going to go to the end and the end is going to come to the forward, and in this order we're going to reverse this. When it comes to implementing this challenge, we need to think about every individual language in its own context. So we start with JavaScript. When it comes to JavaScript, the first thing that we need to do is we need to think if this language supports some sort of a method that is going to allow us to reverse a string easily. And if it supports that method, we're going to use that. And in JavaScript, we can use a combination of methods to actually be able to reverse a string. So the way that we're going to go in this language is, first we are going to create our string. We could name it anything we want, but the string itself is going to be fast. Now, I'm going to break this string up into its associating letters, and then I am going to reverse the order, and then I'm going to join them back together. So in here, I'm going to say const rev stir, meaning reversed string. We're going to grab our string, and if I do the dot, we're going to see there is a split method. This is going to basically split our string. Now, what do we want this to be split at? We could split it at a space if there is a space. We could split it at every individual character if we just put in empty quotes. And then once I split this, what I actually get from this is I get an array, and then I can reverse an array using the reverse method. And now I have an array, and what I need to do is I need to convert it to a string and then join it back together. So I do that using the join method. Now, what do I want to join it at? Do I want to join it at a dot or at a space, or I simply want to join all characters together? I simply want to join all of them together. That's why I'm just going to put in empty quotes, and that's it. So let's log our results. This is rev stir. And in here, note let's run this, and there we go. We got tsaf. So that's the solution for JavaScript. The solution for TypeScript is going to be on almost the same way. It's the same solution for these simple challenges as I've mentioned before. The JavaScript and TypeScript codes are going to be similar. We just have the same syntax, but when it comes to TypeScript, we are going to have something that's called type annotation. So I could type annotate this to a type of string and this one to a type of string as well. This is not really necessary to do, but I just want it to be different from the JavaScript file. And that's it. Let's save that. Let's come right here. And first off, we need to compile this into something that can be read. We're going to compile it to JavaScript. There we go. We got the b reverse string.js. And now we can just run that. B tab, let's run it. And there we go. We got our result. Now that we're done with JavaScript and TypeScript, let's talk about Python. The first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to write input string, and we're going to pass in the string of fast, and we're going to create another variable that is going to hold the reverse of that. Now, when it comes to Python, we're going to use something called a slicing syntax. Since that's a syntax, let me just write it here. So we're going to have square brackets, and in here, we're going to have a full slice. And in here, we're going to have two things. We're going to have a step value, which is denoted by double colons, and then we're going to have the step itself. Now, we want to reverse this string, and the step that we need to pass in order to reverse a string is going to be -1. This means that we're going to go from the other end. We're going to go backwards. And this is essentially going to reverse the string for us. So let's print it as well. Rev stir, save this. Let's come right here, Python, C, and let's run it. And there we go. We got our result. And so far you can see that Python has the shorter syntax and the more understandable and sweeter syntax. That's why Python is easier to learn in comparison to any other language. So now that we are done with Python, let's jump into Go. Inside of the Go file, let's basically import the main package, create our main function, the entry point for any Go app. What do I want to do here? I'm going to create a variable that is going to hold the value of our input string. Now, how are we going to go about this? In Go, we don't have any kind of method to reverse a string like we did in JavaScript and Typescript, or any kind of slicing syntax like we had in Python. So what we need to do is, in order to manipulate the string, we need to convert it into a rune, because strings are immutable sequences of bytes, not characters. And for proper string manipulation, we need to have a rune. So how do you create a rune? I'm going to call this runes. And this is the syntax for creating a rune. And what do I want to convert into a rune? That is going to be stir. And after we convert it into a rune, it's no longer a string. We're going to iterate over this. And in each iteration, we're going to basically swap the position of the first with the last. And then we're going to convert it back to a string. So let's say for. Now, what do I want to have as my loop agent or loop variables? I'm going to have something that's called start and another one that's called end. Now, I need to have a starting value for start and also a starting value for end. The start variable is going to be responsible for moving to the right to process the next character. And the end variable is going to be responsible for moving to the left to process the previous character. All right. So the starting point for start is going to be 0. The starting point for end is going to be runes. Now, how can I get to the end of the rune? I'm going to say -1. That's going to give me the end. And now, what is going to be the condition? We are going to iterate over this rune as long as start is less than end. That's going to be our ending point, and that's going to be our condition. So we're going to grab our runes. Now keep in mind, start and end are individual points or characters that are within our runes. So we're going to grab the start rune as well as the end runes, and we are going to swap their places. And how are we going to do that? Let's take a look at it. So I'm going to say start is going to be equal to end, and then I'm going to say end is going to be equal to start. Let's copy that, put it right there. And now we need to increment this step as well, because we want the start to move to the right. We gave it a starting point, but we didn't give it a moving point. So we're going to say start ++ for moving to the right. And for end, we needed to move to the left to process the previous character. So we're going to say end -. And that's it. So now what we need to do is we need to convert this rune back to a string. And what did we call our rune? We called it runes. So where am I going to put that? I'm going to say reverse rev stir short variable declaration. And how are we going to convert it? We are going to basically pass it into the string method. And that's our rune right there. And let's print it to the console, rev stir. Let's save this, go run, tab, hit enter. Let's wait for it for a few seconds. There we go. We got our reverse string. I hope that was clear. The first time it takes a little bit longer. So now that we're done with Go, let's talk about Rust. Before talking about it, let's close that file. Let's jump into the Rust file. Now, when it comes to Rust, you need to keep in mind that Rust is the same as Go when it comes to handling strings. Strings are sequences of bytes. Some strings, like emojis, they could contain several bytes, but they're not characters. So you need to convert them into something that is called characters in order to iterate over them. In Go, we converted them to runes so we could iterate over them. In Rust, we're going to convert them to characters to be able to iterate over them. First off, let's create the main entry point for this application, and that's the main function. And in here, I'm going to say stir. This is going to have a type of string, and now I'm going to grab our owned strings, and we have talked about how to create an owned string in Rust before. Now, after creating this, we need to reverse it, but to be able to reverse it, we need to convert it into a sequence of characters. Now, when it comes to Rust, as opposed to Go, we don't have to loop over the sequence of characters. We do have methods that are going to reverse the string in place for us. So I'm going to say let rev stir, and the type of this is going to be string. I'm going to grab our string, and on there I'm going to say chars or characters. This is basically going to give us an iterator of each character or char in the string. Now that we have gotten characters, we can reverse them in place. And finally, we can gather them using the collect method and convert them into a new string. Basically, the collect method is going to gather the reverse characters into a new string. And that's it. Let's print this as well. Let's put in our placeholder and let's grab our reverse string. Let's save this. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to say rust c. What is the name of the file? It's E. Save that. This is going to give us an executable. And I forgot to add a semicolon here. I need to add semicolon there and there. We need to terminate our lines of code in Rust. So let's clear that. Let's convert this into an executable, and there we go. And after that, we're basically going to say e.exe, and there we go. We got SAF. And with this, the second challenge has come to an end. See you in the third one.